First Contact. The biodomes of Helios 9 glittered like soap bubbles against the purple sky of Epsilon Eridani b. Inside one of these technological marvels, Soren Nash carefully tended to his collection of hybrid plants, each specimen more fascinating than the last. His dark curls fell over his eyes as he leaned close to examine a particularly interesting mutation in his latest cross-species experiment. The research station had been his home for the past 3 years, but lately, something felt different. The plants were exhibiting unusual growth patterns, their bioluminescent properties intensifying without explanation. As the station's lead xenobotanist, Soren knew he should be excited about these developments, but instead, he felt uneasy. Another late night, Dr. Nash. The voice of Dr. Patel, his colleague, echoed through the dome's communication system. There's something different about these readings, Soren replied, adjusting his instruments. The plants are producing energy signatures I've never seen before. That's when he saw it, a shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. But the environmental controls in the dome were perfect, there shouldn't be any distortions. The shimmer moved, taking on a more defined shape. Soren stepped back, his heart racing. The air coalesced into a form that defied explanation, a being that seemed to be made of living crystal, with facets that caught and reflected light in impossible ways. It was roughly humanoid, but taller, more elegant, with a translucent quality that made it appear both solid and ethereal. I mean you no harm, the being spoke, its voice resonating like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. I am Nyara, of the Crystalline Collective. Soren's scientific training warred with his instinct to run. How are you here? Our sensors didn't detect any approaching vessels. Nyara's form shifted slightly, creating rainbow patterns in the air. We have been here all along, watching, learning. Your plants, they sing to us. We've been studying them, as you have. The realization hit Soren like a wave. The unusual readings, the unexpected mutations, it all made sense now. You've been influencing my experiments? Not intentionally, Nyara replied, moving closer. Her crystalline form caught the light from the bioluminescent plants, creating a symphony of colors. Our presence naturally affects living things. We are curious about your methods, your understanding of life. Soren found himself drawn to the being's otherworldly beauty. There was something mesmerizing about the way light played through her form, creating patterns that seemed to hold entire universes within them. Why reveal yourself now? He asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his initial fear. Because you were ready to see, Nyara answered. And because we need your help. Our world is changing, and your understanding of biological adaptation might be key to our survival. As they talked through the night, Soren learned of the Crystalline Collective's fascinating culture, their symbiotic relationship with various forms of life, and their current crisis. Their home world was experiencing a shift in its energy field, threatening their very existence. The dawn found them still deep in conversation, surrounded by gently glowing plants. Soren realized that this encounter would change everything, his research, his understanding of life itself, and perhaps even his heart, which seemed to beat in a new rhythm as he watched light dance through Nyara's crystalline form. Little did he know that this was just the beginning of an adventure that would challenge everything he thought he knew about life, love, and the very nature of existence itself. Breaking barriers. The weeks following Nyara's revelation transformed the biodome into something entirely new. Soren found himself working late into the night, not just because of his research, but because of the fascinating conversations that unfurled in the quiet hours when the rest of the station slept. Nyara moved through the laboratory like living starlight, her crystalline form shifting and flowing as she examined his experiments. Her presence had an unexpected effect on the plants, they seemed to reach toward her, their bioluminescence pulsing in harmony with her movements. Your physical forms are so different from ours, Nyara observed one evening, her voice carrying notes of curiosity in something else, something warmer. Yet you create such beauty. She gestured to the hybrid flowers that filled the dome with their soft, multicolored glow. Soren watched as she interacted with a particularly responsive specimen, its petals unfurling at her touch. "Beauty isn't limited to any one form," he said softly, finding himself mesmerized by the way light fractaled through her being. "Your people prove that." The air between them seemed to charge with unspoken potential. Nyara turned to face him, her form shimming with what he had learned to recognize as emotion. "We have a saying in the collective," she said, moving closer. "That understanding flows like light through crystal, it requires both clarity and reflection." As she approached, Soren felt the familiar warmth that always accompanied her proximity, not heat exactly, but a kind of energetic resonance that made his skin tingle and his heart race. "What are you reflecting on?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The unexpected paths that lead us to discovery," she replied. Her form shifted, creating patterns that seemed to mirror the beating of his heart. "When my people sent me to study your research, they never anticipated this." "This?" Soren's breath caught as tendrils of crystalline light reached out, not quite touching him but close enough that he could feel their energy. "This connection," Nyara clarified, her voice taking on a musical quality that made the plants around them pulse with responsive light. "Your species experiences emotions so intensely, so physically. It's fascinating, and beautiful." The space between them crackled with possibility. Soren reached out slowly, letting his hand hover near her crystalline surface. "May I?" Nyara's form rippled with iridescent patterns. "You should know," she said, her voice carrying a note of warning, "that touch between our kinds creates a deeper connection than you might expect. My people share energy, memories, feelings." "I'm not afraid," Soren replied, though his heart thundered in his chest. When his fingers finally made contact with her crystalline surface, the world exploded into light and sensation. It was like touching a star, not burning, but filled with endless energy and possibility. Images and feelings flooded his mind, the vast crystal cities of her homeworld, the song of stars through space, the curiosity that drew her to study other life forms, and underneath it all, a growing fascination with him. The connection lasted only moments, but when it broke, Soren knew he would never see the universe the same way again. He staggered slightly, steadying himself against a nearby table. "That was..." He struggled to find words adequate to describe the experience. "Unexpected?" Nyara suggested, her form shimmering with what he now recognized as amusement and affection. "Incredible," he corrected, still feeling the echoes of their connection thrumming through his body. "Your people experience everything like that?" "We experience everything as energy and light," she explained, moving to help stabilize him. "But this was different. Your emotions, your perceptions, they created something new. Something neither of us expected." As they stood there in the gentle glow of the hybrid plants, Soren realized they had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. The line between researcher and subject had blurred, replaced by something far more complex and intriguing. "The station administrators will need to know about you eventually," he said reluctantly, knowing their secret couldn't last forever. "Yes," Nyara agreed, her form pulsing with gentle light. "But perhaps not tonight. Tonight is for understanding." The plants around them seemed to agree, their bioluminescence creating a private universe of light and shadow. In that moment, surrounded by the results of their combined influence on the hybrid specimens, Soren understood that he was part of something much larger than his original research. He was witnessing the birth of a new kind of connection, one that bridged the vast gulf between stars and species. And as Nyara's crystalline form cast rainbow patterns across his skin, he couldn't bring himself to regret a single moment of it. Hidden truths. The biodome's environmental controls hummed softly as Soren reviewed the latest data from his experiments. The numbers on his screen told an impossible story. The hybrid plants weren't just growing faster, they were evolving, developing entirely new properties that defied conventional biology. "You seem troubled," Nyara's melodic voice filled the space as her crystalline form materialized beside him. Her presence sent ripples of energy through the air, making the screens flicker slightly. These readings, Soren gestured to the displays, they're unprecedented. The plants are producing energy signatures similar to your crystalline structure. He turned to face her, noting how her form seemed more vibrant than usual, pulses of light moving through her like thoughts made visible. There's something you haven't told me, isn't there? Nyara's form shifted, creating patterns that Soren had learned to recognize as uncertainty. Yes, she admitted, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself seem to vibrate. My presence here, it wasn't entirely by chance. The laboratory seemed to grow smaller as she moved closer, her crystalline surface reflecting and refracting the soft glow of the hybrid plants. My people are dying, Soren. The energy field that sustains us is failing, and we believed your research might hold the key to our survival. The hybrid adaptations, Soren breathed, understanding dawning. You were hoping to find a way to evolve, to adapt like these plants have. Yes, but something unexpected happened. Nyara's form pulsed with emotion, creating cascades of light that danced across the laboratory walls. The connection between us, it's affecting me in ways we never anticipated. As if to demonstrate, she reached out with a tendril of crystalline energy. When it touched Soren's hand, the connection was immediate and intense, but different from before. Instead of just sharing thoughts and memories, he could feel a physical change in her structure, as if his own biological energy was somehow reshaping her crystalline matrix. You're becoming something new, he gasped, both amazed and slightly frightened by the implications. Our interactions aren't just affecting the plants, they're changing you too. And you, Nyara replied softly. She guided his hand to his chest, where a faint luminescence had begun to develop under his skin, subtle enough to have gone unnoticed until now. We are creating something that has never existed before. The realization should have terrified him, but instead, Soren felt a deep sense of wonder. He had come to this station to study alien life forms, but now he was becoming part of an entirely new evolutionary process. The station's sensors are starting to pick up the energy signatures, he said, glancing at another screen showing security data. We don't have much time before others notice. Nyara's form rippled with concern. There are those among my people who would see this as a threat. This evolution, it wasn't part of their plan. They wanted a solution they could control. And instead, they got us, Soren said with a slight smile, watching the play of light beneath his skin. What happens now? Before Nyara could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights cast red shadows across her crystalline surface as she moved protectively closer to Soren. They're here, she whispered, her voice carrying notes of both fear and determination. Both of them, your people's security forces and my people's preservation council. They've detected the energy signatures. Soren quickly began transferring research data to a secure drive. We need to protect the plants, he said urgently. Everything we've learned, everything we've become, it's all here in this biodome. There's something else, Nyara said, her form growing brighter with intensity. Something I haven't told you. She moved to the center of the laboratory, where their most successful hybrid specimens grew. As she approached, the plants responded dramatically, their bioluminescence synchronizing with her crystalline pulses. What haven't you told me? Soren asked, even as part of him already knew the answer. The way the plants reached toward her, the unprecedented energy readings, the changes in both of them. Nyara's form opened like a flower blooming in starlight, revealing a small crystalline structure at her core, one that pulsed with both her energy signature and something that matched the new luminescence in Soren's cells. We've created more than just hybrid plants, she said softly. We've created a future. The crystalline structure, their child, glowed with possibility, even as the sound of boots and voices echoed through the station's corridors, growing closer to their sanctuary of light and discovery. Quantum bonds. The footsteps grew closer as Soren and Nyara stood protectively around their crystalline creation. The hybrid plants pulsed with increasing intensity, responding to the heightened energy in the room. Soren's skin now glowed visibly, threads of light running through his veins like liquid starlight. "We need to protect it," Nyara's voice resonated with maternal determination, her crystalline form creating a protective barrier around their child. "They won't understand what we've created." "Then we'll make them understand," Soren said, stepping forward as the laboratory doors slid open with a pressurized hiss. Director Walsh entered first, flanked by station security. Behind them, 3 tall crystalline beings similar to Nyara but with more rigid, geometric forms, emanated disapproval through pulses of deep red light. "Dr. Nash," Walsh's voice was tight with controlled anger, "you have some explaining to do." Her eyes widened as she took in his transformed appearance, the luminescence beneath his skin now impossible to hide. "High Resonator," one of the crystalline beings addressed Nyara in harmonics that made the air vibrate, "you have violated our most sacred protocols. This unauthorized fusion must be contained." Soren moved closer to Nyara, feeling the energy between them intensify. With all due respect, he addressed both groups, "You're not containing anything. What's happening here is beyond any of our protocols or expectations. Look around you." He gestured to the hybrid plants, their bioluminescence now synchronized with both his and Nyara's energy signatures. "We're not just crossing species boundaries, we're discovering entirely new forms of life and consciousness." The crystalline beings shifted, their forms expressing what Soren had learned to recognize as agitation. "The human speaks of things he cannot understand," the leader said. "Our species has spent millennia perfecting our crystalline form. This contamination threatens everything." "No," Nyara's voice rang out with unexpected authority, her form blazing with intense light. "It doesn't threaten, it evolves. What Soren and I have discovered isn't contamination, it's transcendence." She opened her crystalline structure again, revealing their child. The small formation pulsed with a unique energy signature that combined both their patterns, creating something entirely new. The hybrid plants around them responded, their light pulsing in perfect harmony. Director Walsh stepped forward, her scientific curiosity temporarily overriding her anger. "Is that offspring?" "It's the future," Soren explained, his transformed cells humming with energy. "A bridge between organic and crystalline life. The plants were just the beginning, proof that such adaptation was possible. What Nyara and I have created goes beyond simple hybridization." The crystalline beings moved closer, their forms analyzing the child with increasing interest. "This should not be possible," the leader said, but their tone had shifted from dismissal to wonder. "And yet it is," Nyara replied. She reached out to Soren, and when they touched, the energy surge was visible to everyone in the room. The hybrid plants burst into unprecedented luminescence, their growth accelerating visibly. "The energy readings are off the scale," one of the security officers reported, checking their instruments. "But they're stable. Harmonious." Director Walsh watched as patterns of light danced beneath Soren's skin, matching the pulses of Nyara's crystalline form. "You've become something else, haven't you, Dr. Nash?" "Not something else," he corrected, feeling the energy flow between him and Nyara, nurturing their child. "Something more. We both have." The crystalline beings conferred in frequencies too high for human ears, their forms shifting through complex geometric patterns. Finally, the leader turned back to them. "The Preservation Council must study this," they announced. "Such evolution, it could be the key to saving both our species." "You can study it," Nyara said firmly, "but you cannot control it. What we've created here isn't just about survival, it's about growth, about finding new ways to exist together." Soren looked at their child, its unique energy signature already showing signs of both adaptation and stability. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "There's so much more to discover." Director Walsh sighed, holstering her weapon. "I suppose I'll have to revise the station's fraternization policies," she said dryly. "And somehow explain to Earth Command why one of our xenobotanists is starting to glow." The tension in the room began to dissolve, replaced by a cautious sense of wonder. As the crystalline beings approached to study their child more closely, Soren and Nyara remained connected, their combined energy creating patterns of light that suggested possibilities none of them had imagined before. New Horizons. 3 months after the confrontation in the biodome, Helios 9 had transformed beyond recognition. The station's central research hub now housed a sprawling crystalline garden where organic and mineral life forms grew together in impossible harmony. Soren stood at its center, his transformed body glowing softly as he monitored the latest generation of hybrids. The adaptation rate continues to accelerate, he noted, watching as a newly sprouted crystal plant shifted its structure to better capture light. His own transformation had stabilized, leaving him somewhere between human and crystalline, his skin emanating a subtle luminescence that pulsed in rhythm with his emotions. Nyara materialized beside him, her form more fluid and organic than before, having evolved alongside him. Their child, whom they had named Aurora, floated between them in a specially designed containment field, its unique structure growing more complex each day. The Council's latest report just arrived, Nyara said, her voice carrying harmonics of excitement. The first successful transformations have begun on my homeworld. The energy field is stabilizing. Soren smiled, reaching out to touch Aurora's crystalline surface. The connection was immediate, a rush of pure possibility that made his modified cells sing with joy. An Earth command. Still processing the implications, Director Walsh's voice came from behind them. She approached, no longer flinching at the sight of Soren's transformation. But the preliminary results from the medical trials are promising. Your unique condition might hold the key to treating numerous genetic disorders. The garden pulsed with life around them, each hybrid species representing a different possibility for the future. What had started as a simple research project had evolved into something far more profound, a bridge between worlds, between forms of life that had seemed fundamentally incompatible. We're getting requests from other research stations, Walsh continued, reviewing her tablet. Scientists worldwide want to study the hybridization process. And the Crystalline Collective has proposed establishing permanent exchange programs. They're finally beginning to understand, Nyara said, her form shimmering with satisfaction. Evolution isn't about preserving what we are, it's about becoming what we could be. Aurora pulsed brightly, drawing their attention. The young being was already showing signs of unprecedented abilities, able to shift between crystalline and organic forms at will. Around them, the hybrid garden responded to its energy, creating waves of synchronized light that rippled through the station. The real work is just beginning, Soren said, watching as human scientists and crystalline researchers worked side by side, studying the miraculous transformations taking place in the garden. His own body hummed with energy, a constant reminder of how far they'd come and how far they still had to go. A group of new arrivals entered the garden, human scientists preparing to undergo the first controlled transformations. They looked nervous but determined, having seen the benefits of the human crystalline hybrid state in Soren and the early volunteers. Are you ready? Nyara asked one of them, a young botanist who reminded Soren of himself just months ago. I think so, the woman replied, watching in fascination as light played beneath Soren's skin. Did it hurt? The transformation? Soren exchanged a look with Nyara, remembering the intensity of their first connection. It's not about pain, he explained. It's about opening yourself to new possibilities. About letting go of what you think you should be and embracing what you could become. The garden's lights dimmed slightly, creating a more intimate atmosphere as Nyara began the preparation ritual. Aurora pulsed excitedly, seeming to understand the significance of the moment. They were about to help another human take their first steps toward a new form of existence. Director Walsh watched from the observation deck, shaking her head in amazement. When we established this research station, we thought we'd be studying alien plants. Instead, we're watching the next step in human evolution. Not just human evolution, Soren corrected, feeling the energy flow between him, Nyara, and Aurora, a family that shouldn't have been possible, yet existed nonetheless. We're all evolving together, finding new ways to adapt and connect. As the transformation ritual began, the garden erupted in waves of bioluminescence. The hybrid plants, sensing the impending change, reached toward the gathered beings with tendrils of light. Soren held Nyara close, their energies merging seamlessly as they prepared to guide another soul through the process that had brought them together. Aurora floated above them, its form shifting between crystalline and organic patterns in a beautiful dance of possibility. In that moment, surrounded by the fruits of their unexpected love and the promise of more miracles to come, Soren knew that they had created something greater than themselves, a future where the boundaries between species were not walls, but doorways to new forms of existence. The twin suns of Epsilon Eridani sat outside the station's windows, bathing the garden in golden light. But inside, the real illumination came from the beings themselves, human, crystalline, and everything in between, all glowing with the light of transformation and discovery. Their story wasn't ending, it was evolving, just as they were, into something beautiful and unprecedented. Aurora pulsed one final time, sending ripples of joy through the assembled beings. The future was bright, and it shimmered with possibilities as endless as the stars themselves.